right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Stephen. Welcome to LAFB Live after a little hiatus. It's been wedding season, so I've just been crazy stacked with weddings, and glad to be back. Though glad to be on the mic. Stephen, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I have not been to some weddings, but it's been a busy time for me nonetheless. Starting a new job and all, and wife and I have been traveling a little bit to LA a little bit more frequently than usual, so it's been busy for us too.
Yeah, you were just down here, last week?
I was down here last week, or down there last week, I should say.
Yeah.
Went to the Utah USC game, which was amazing. Utah's first win at the Coliseum in the Pac-12, so it was a huge game for us.
Yeah.
They went to the Chargers and Browns game, which of course was a barn burner, electric atmosphere, probably the best football game I've ever been to in person. So it was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, man, that was an amazing game. Amazing game. The USC one, not so much, but we all know you're a Utah fan, so good for you.
Yeah. It was amazing for us. Yeah, it was amazing for us.
I have yet to see USC win at the Collie this year, so it's been
really. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, we had our first game against San Jose State. I had one of our other writers go. Ahmed went to that one, so they won that one, and then everyone I've been to, they've
gotcha.
Stanford, Oregon State, Utah, yeah. So, but we won't talk too much about USC. They were on a bye this week. They got Notre Dame next week, though. They're gonna. I think we were texting last night, and like randomly somehow USC is gonna beat Notre Dame next week in South Bend.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Well, the Pac-12 is super weird this year. I mean, weirder than usual. I feel like,
which is saying something.
But college football in general, like it feels like there's a top 8 team that loses every single week.
Yeah.
So it's been a weird season of college football. Next week is huge, right? Because you have UCLA and Oregon. Yeah. Utah goes up to Oregon State, which is weirdly a very important game in the conference. So
Oregon State's
it's a big weekend in the Pac-12 next week. And USC at USC at Notre Dame, or do they host Notre Dame?
At Notre Dame, probably for the better.
Probably for the better.
They can't win at the Collie this year.
You never know. Maybe some of these players who are just uber talented, maybe they show up for the road games a little bit more for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, how crazy! Yeah, Oregon State is 4-2, 2-1 in conference. How crazy is that?
Mm-hmm.
Good for them. I'm happy for them. So
good for the Beavs.
Good for the Beavs. That's right. Yeah, we're gonna get, obviously this show will be mainly talking Rams, Chargers, 2 10 a.m. kickoffs as the Rams travel out to New York to face the Giants. The Chargers travel to Baltimore to face the Ravens.
Oh, wow. Inactives just came out.
Okay, perfect timing. This always happens right when we go live, which is good. Roundtree inactive, huh?
Yeah, Kelly over Roundtree and Fehoko over Merrill.
Okay. This is obviously the Chargers inactives for those Easton Stick. Adderley and Tranquil obviously are out because of injury. Huh. Interesting.
I wonder who's returning kicks today.
Are you surprised that Hymus isn't active at all with O'Day out? Obviously, he was.
I am, because they just barely signed Senyo Kalemete.
Yeah, that is surprising to me too. With O'Day out, I thought he would have been interesting. So no, I don't think the inactives for the Rams are out yet. So we'll get that. I'm sure that'll drop as we're talking. Yeah, interesting. Josh Kelly getting some love last 2 weeks.
I know, if he's going to be the kick returner.
You got to do something. Their return game has been nothing special. So
it's been awful. I don't know if you've looked at Football Outsiders.
Yeah,
it is not pretty for the Chargers special teams rankings, and kickoff return is one of the issues right now. So
yeah, we'll get all into it. Thing I'll say quickly before we save that for later, but at least we're not talking like about special teams issues in terms of fumbles, giving up touchdowns. Right. So at least we're not doing that this year like we were last year. It's just like they got to be more positive instead of just like basically doing nothing. They're basically just bodies on the field right now. But we'll take that over last year.
I know. Yes, we will. So it's an upgrade, but not much, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, all right, before we get into the pro games, really dive into it though. So I want to talk really quick about this UCLA Oregon matchup. Like, let me ask you this. Do you think this UCLA team's for real? I don't know how many games you've actually watched, but they're 5-2 now. 2 tough losses, got blown out by Arizona State last week. And then we saw Utah just beat Arizona State. LSU just beat Florida. So that win looks a little better. Fresno State was looking good and they lose to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So who really knows? But you think this UCLA team's for real?
So classic Pac-12 that ASU beats UCLA and then Utah beats ASU, and now Utah and UCLA will play next week. So just classic Pac-12. We talked before the season about UCLA, and I had a lot of doubts, specifically about DTR and his ability to not lose them games. And so UCLA has definitely exceeded my expectations. And being 4-2 right now, I think they are for real. I think they're legitimate. Mm-hmm. How legitimate obviously is going to be a big test this weekend against Oregon. But if they beat Oregon, and then they have a huge matchup with Utah to likely determine the division. So yeah, I think I think UCLA is for real. I think they are legitimate, and we'll see just how legitimate they are this week. But they've exceeded all of my expectations. I expected them to be like a 7-5 kind of team. They're trending towards 8 wins, 9 wins, even, depending on how the next 2 weeks go. So I like what UCLA is doing. One of the things I always like to do is follow all the offensive line guys on Twitter. And they all talked yesterday about how UCLA is like the best team to close out games because of their offensive line and their running game. So as long as they are able to get out to leads, which they've been able to do, like UCLA fans should be very happy with what is going on offense, particularly.
Yeah, that's the bread and butter. And we saw Zach Charbonnet, now he is the true lion's share running back, getting over 21 carries, I think over 100 yards yet again. I mean, the dude is so good. Like, got so lucky that he came to UCLA. And Britton Brown's no slouch either, but Zach Charbonnet is just a special runner and what they're able to do in the trenches. So, and DTR played well yesterday against a Washington team that I know is not very good this year, but they do have a good defense where they struggle as quarterback and offensively. But DTR, he was a very efficient. So I think that's a good thing. And UCLA matches or gets their biggest win total so far in the Chip Kelly era at 5. That's not saying much, but hey, they're there. 1 win away from bowl eligibility.
There we go.
Yeah, 2 big matches back home with the Rose Bowl against Oregon, which is going to be a great game. And if they can win that and then go against Utah, who I know Utah, no one's really talking about them because of how they struggled early on, but they're leading the Pac-12 South right now, undefeated in conference. Yeah. So you got to feel pretty good about that.
Like this team, the way they're playing right now, this is what I thought would happen before the season. And, for whatever reason, they just really struggled out of the gate with Charlie Brewer, who, is now in the transfer portal. And Cam Rising has really brought a lot of life to this team. And of course, they had to go through the tragedy a couple weeks ago of losing, their teammate Aaron Lowe. But they're playing awesome, man. And yesterday kind of felt like a Chargers game because ASU was up 21-7 and Utah was driving right before the half. And Rising throws an interception in the red zone. And when that happened, I was like, oh, this game's over. Like, Utah's not going to be able to overcome this 14-point lead because ASU was also rolling. So in my head, I was like, this game's over. Like, ASU is probably going to cruise to like a 35-24 win or something like that. And to shut ASU out completely in the second half, it is just like, that's how dominant Utah's defense was yesterday. That's how dominant the offense was yesterday. And it was just amazing to watch. And so this weekend, like I said, Oregon State is a big matchup. But next week against UCLA, like, it's going to be the most physical game of the year in the Pac-12. Like, these two teams just love to hammer each other. And I can't wait to watch because Utah's defense, like, we all know the best thing about them is always how their ability to stop the run. Devin Lloyd leads the conference in tackles for loss by like a wide margin. They've always got strong nose tackles, defensive ends. So it's going to be an electric matchup next week in Salt Lake City. Even more so if Utah and UCLA are able to win this weekend. But it's exciting, man. Like, it's, watching this team overcome the things that they are overcoming has been awesome to watch.
It'd be a fun one to travel out for. Get to Salt Lake for this UCLA.
It would be. It would be.
That'd be a fun
one. Last night was electric in Rice Eccles, man. It really was.
Yeah, we'll see how this. If they both win this week, maybe we'll let that percolate a little. What weekend is that? Halloween weekend when they would play?
No, it's the weekend before.
Okay.
So that would be that would be Halloween weekend. I'm sorry, yeah.
Halloween weekend. Okay.
So I can't go because I have tickets to the Chargers and Patriots game, but
a little tougher then. Yeah, that's what I remembered. And obviously I have a an infant who it's her first Halloween, so special, I guess. I've been told as a parent that's a big deal, I guess. So,
I'm not a Halloween guy, so I'm
not at all
worried about Halloween down the road. So
I'm not a Halloween guy at all. My wife's like huge into Halloween. Like that's like one of her
Same
favorite
here.
holidays. But
Same here.
I could forget about it forever. Like I had fun in college, dressing up and going to parties. But anyway, okay, let's get into these NFL games specifically. Obviously, our Chargers and Rams. Who do you want to start with? You want to start with Rams today? I feel like we always start Chargers and then Rams.
Yeah, we'll talk with the Rams first.
Let's do Rams first, then we'll end with Chargers. 4-1 Rams go against the 1-4 Giants. Tons of injury. I don't know if you've looked at the Giants depth chart, but they have like a freaking red mark next to almost every player, whether it's IR, out, doubtful, questionable. Danny Dimes is expected to play past the protocol. I had my guest on my show, and he said he just doesn't think he should play because it's a game they can't win, in his opinion. So why put him out there so quickly? What's your thoughts on this? Let me just ask you, what's your thoughts on this Giants team? Like, is Joe Judge the truth? Is he going to be the coach around, or is Danny Dimes the truth? Just give me your thoughts on this Giants team.
I'll start with Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones has been much better than I thought he would be this year. He hasn't had the same kind of struggles with fumbles. He's been a little bit more consistent as a passer. It took him a little bit to get going with Kenny Golladay, who unfortunately is hurt today. But he's finding a groove, and I think he's played really well. He had a really good connection with Kadarius Toney last week before Toney lost his mind and threw punches in a football game, which I will never ever understand anyone who throws punches at a helmet in a football game. It's literally the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life, and it always happens.
Yep.
Anyways, Daniel Jones has played much better than I thought. I think the Giants offense has been slightly better than I thought. The issue with the Giants this year is that their defense has really taken a big step back. And, people were talking about their defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, as like a rising star in football. Like they were thinking that he was going to be, Brandon Staley 2.0. Like there was all this hype around him, and they've taken a big step back. I think Leonard Williams is still playing at a really high level, but Dexter Lawrence has taken a step back. Their cornerback, I forget his name right now.
James Bradbury,
with the Panthers. Yeah, James Bradbury has taken a step back. They signed Adoree Jackson. That really hasn't worked out. So they're in a really weird situation because they've spent a ton of money on all of these players, Jackson, Logan Ryan, Kenny Golladay, and their team is 1-4, and there's no really any kind of end in sight. So they're in a weird situation. Then you have Joe Judge, who I think is one of the worst coaches in the league right now. Yeah. And I don't know, like he's supposed to be like a special teams guru. He's supposed to be like a discipline guru. And they're always so undisciplined. Like, there's always these fights that go on. There's a scuffle in practice this week. So I'm not a believer in Joe Judge.
They lose on an offsides on a special teams play.
Yes.
Kick against Washington.
Yes. So I did not like that hire at all. I think it would have been one thing if you hire like a really smart defensive coach like the Chargers did and bring in a good offensive coordinator. But you bring in Joe Judge, who's a special teams guy. Then you hired Jason Garrett as your offensive coordinator. And the coaching staff is just kind of blah. It's just kind of like there's no real standout except for Patrick Graham, supposedly. So I think the Giants are in some troubles because they have no cap space and their coaching staff probably needs to be all fired. So it's a messy situation for sure for the Giants.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, and they just have so many question marks. Like usually you want to have knowing kind of by, mid-season or so, like, okay, this is our future. We're going to improve and get better, or we're moving on next year. And I think there's that unknown still of truly what they're doing. And the guy I was talking to earlier this week, he thinks it stems more from like ownership, like, cause they meddle, he says, in decisions. And so you can blame Gettleman, but the ownership has a say in a lot of decisions football wise, that, obviously hasn't worked out, and they haven't been good since 2011 was their last Super Bowl, and they've been pretty much awful since then. So,
well, that's the thing. Like in terms of the Giants, like they had their 2 Super Bowl years, but other than that, I feel like they've always been bad. Like they're never a consistently good team, and then for whatever reason, they won the Super Bowl those 2 years. But
even their Super Bowl years, they weren't like great. They just like caught fire in the playoffs.
Yeah, the one year when they beat the Patriots, the undefeated Patriots, I think they were like 9-7.
Yeah, they were wild. I think they were the 6th seed or whatever, and snuck in. So, But this, I
It's
said,
bad.
yeah, I said earlier too that this game for me is a must win for the Rams, and I said that because obviously we're in week 6. There's tons of football left, 17 weeks this year. Rams are a very good football team at 4-1, just one game behind the Cardinals right now. But I said it's a must win because these games, if you lose, that's like a barometer on like whether you're coaching deficiencies, some talent deficiencies, and it's early, so it's not like they lose this game, they're done, like they can't turn it around. But I think this is a game they need to come out the gates and just blow the doors off them because they are that much better of a football team than the Giants. I think a lot of NFL teams, you have like your top 3 or 4 that are like top tier talent. You have your bottom 3 or 4 that are good drop off. Everyone in between is, I think, damn close. Like the records may be way different, and some of that's just like bad luck, injuries, some coaching deficiencies. But the talent on those rosters from 1 through 53, from team 4 to team 27, in my opinion, is pretty close. This game is the Rams in that top 1 through 3, and the Giants because of injuries in that bottom, I think 3 or 4. So the Rams should win this by a lot.
Yeah, and ideally, this kind of time in the league, you want to see the cream continue to rise to the top, and I think we have been seeing that around the rest of the league, right? We're seeing the best teams start to really separate themselves, and it's time for the Rams to do that. Like it's time for the Rams to potentially tie the Cardinals today in terms of record. We'll see what the Cardinals do in Cleveland without Cliff Kingsbury. But if they lose today and the Cardinals win, 2 games now, essentially 3, because the Rams have, they lost to the Cardinals. So this is a big game, despite not being a great opponent, because you never know, right? And, I think we all expected the Seahawks to be better. We expected the 49ers to be a little bit better. And that's not really been the case. So the NFC West will be competitive. It'll be tough, as it always is. But now it's really you and the Cardinals if you're the Rams. So this is a big game. If you lose and the Cardinals continue to win, then that's probably an insurmountable deficit at this point, right? Because the Cardinals, who knows what happens the rest of the season, but you have to make up 3 games. That's tough to do. So you got to keep pace with the Cardinals right now. Hope that the Browns are able to win today. We'll see. They don't have Nick Chubb either, so it's gonna be an interesting game up in Cleveland too. But the Rams have to win today in order to keep pace.
Yeah, and I think they should. So I've talked about Cooper Kupp a lot. I think we've talked a ton about him on this show. Obviously we had 2 weeks off, so a lot has happened since then. But I think Cooper Kupp is a top 5 receiver. I just think based on production, and I think he doesn't get the love because he doesn't have the measurables, doesn't have the speed, the size, the quickness. You could say that too. Yeah, I think that might play a role into it. But to me, he's a top 5 receiver. Look at the production he has. He's like top 1 and 2 right now in almost every statistical category this year, and continues to get better and better as him and Stafford are on the same page. Do you think he's a top 5 receiver?
I think top 5 is a bit of a stretch. Yeah, I think he's probably in that conversation. I think you have Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and DeAndre Hopkins. So I think those are probably the top 3.
I don't have Hill in
every single week.
I'm probably way outlier, but I don't have Hill in there.
I think it's tough, man. Like the way that he can just break games open and like consistently put up yards. It's not been great this year. Teams are doing the too high shell against him quite often. But I would have a tough time taking anybody else in the league besides Tyreek Hill. Like if we're doing a receiver draft, like Hill's probably a top 3 choice in my opinion.
And I want you to continue with your 5, but here's why I don't have Hill top 5, and there's no disrespect because he's damn good and damn scary, especially playing him twice a year in this division. To me, he is, I don't like saying one-dimensional because that's I don't know if that's disrespectful or not, but I think he's better than that. But he's not a guy, when I'm 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, gotta have it. I want Keenan Allen. I want Devontae Adams. I want Stephon Diggs. I want these guys that are like my premier separator guys. Tyreek Hill to me he's your burner. He breaks games open, but he can disappear at times. Like there's games where he has 2 weeks ago, he had 3 touchdowns, like 170 yards. And then other games where he has 2 catches for 12 and you don't see him until the 4th quarter when he gets that 1 40-yard play. He's great. He's just not my consistent receiver like you see at a Cup, like the other guys I just mentioned. So for me, that's why I don't have him top 5. Maybe that's, size can play a role in that. Don't get me wrong. He's great. He's top 10. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent. I think people skew things when you say, oh, he's not top 5 and you're saying he's bad. The dude is special, but I just don't think he's top 5. And that's why.
I can totally see that. I think we are seeing a little bit of a transition too, because I'm looking at the receiving stats right now, and DeAndre Hopkins is down there, man. Like I don't know if he's been declining or what, but
they just have a lot of mouths to feed in Arizona. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't discredit what he can do and what he brings. I think and AJ Green's actually been playing really well. Everyone forgets about him. He's been playing good with Arizona. They have, I think, them and the Rams 1 through 5, like receiver 1 through receiver 5 are like the most talented in the league. So you just got to feed those mouths. But Kupp's been getting the bulk of it with the Rams. That's why I think he's been so great. But continue on your point. I butted in there.
Oh, you're good. You're good. So I think for me, Davante Adams is pretty clearly the best receiver in the league. I would probably say Hopkins 2, Hill 3. And then I think there really is kind of a cluster for like 4 through like 10.
Yeah.
I think Stephon Diggs is up there. I think, you could make an argument for Mike Evans, who's on pace for, his like 9th straight 1,000-yard season. You can talk about DK Metcalf. You can talk about Keenan Allen. You can talk about Cooper Kupp. Mike Williams, I think, is approaching that kind of place. Deebo Samuel is having a huge year. Justin Jefferson. So I don't hate anyone that's there's so many good ones in the league right now, and there really is just like a huge cluster for like spots 4 through 10. And so for me, I would probably have Diggs at 4, and then 5.
It's hard.
5, I probably would say DK, like gun to my head. CeeDee Lamb is approaching there too. Amari Cooper, you could make an argument for it. Like there are so many guys.
Sutton's playing really well this year, back again.
Yeah, and he's looked much healthier than I thought he would look. So
yeah,
I don't necessarily disagree with you having Kupp at 5. I think you could definitely make an argument there, but you can make an argument for a lot of guys at like I said, 4 through 10, 4 through 12. Like, but to me, I think the top 3 is pretty good.
Yeah, it's one of those just talking head arguments because they're all so good. They're all so good, and we forget. And I'm not a huge fan's not the right word again, but I'm not huge on him. But we forget Mike Williams, how good not Mike Williams. Down in New Orleans, who's been injured.
Oh, Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas, thank you. How good he was for those years, and he's just been injured now for it seems like a decade. I know it's been like a season and a half or whatever, I think it's been now 1 calendar season because he got hurt like midway through last year. Then now he's still been but we forget how good he was and where he'll come back and how he'll fall into those rankings because he was at the time
the best
consensual 1 or top 3 for sure. So that's another guy. Julio Jones hasn't really been great. AJ Brown is another guy who's talented, but the Tennessee offense has been so bad this year so far, minus Derrick Henry. So there's just a lot of good talent. But I think Cooper Kupp, just what he's done production wise, like I said, when you've got to have that 3rd and 7, who are the guys that you're like, okay, they can't stop him. Like who is going to be open, going to find the zone, going to find that space in the defense that's going to convert for us. And for me, Cooper Kupp does that. Keenan Allen does that. Stephon Diggs does that. Davante Adams does that. Those are the guys that I know I can get it done. You see, I watch a lot of football and you see some of these great receivers, and it's like when the big moments come, they almost disappear. And a lot of that's on the quarterback, obviously. That's what us receivers like to say. Like, it wasn't my fault. The quarterback didn't throw me the ball. So. But sometimes that's trust too. Your quarterback's saying, like, I don't care if there's 3 guys on this guy. I'm getting him the football because I know he's going to get the job done. So far, Cooper Kupp's done that this year.
I didn't realize that I've always known that he's kind of been, the red zone guy for them. I didn't realize that he has 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He's tied for 2nd. So
yeah, he's crushing it. He's literally 1 and 2 in every category. So, and he's got the deep ball. He's had some deep touchdowns. He's got some yak. So anyway, we'll
who I wish, like, this is a different conversation, but who I am have been really frustrated with in this conversation is Chris Godwin. Because Chris Godwin, I felt like in 2019, when he had like 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns or whatever it was, I was like, okay, this is the next big guy.
Yeah.
And then they go out and get Antonio Brown and Gronk, and now he's like essentially, wide receiver 5 in Tampa because Brady loves all of his guys.
Yeah.
Well, so it's been frustrating.
What screwed Godwin, and this is nothing against him, is when you get a top 3 receiver in football for a bag of peanuts. You're gonna take a backseat for it. The fact they have Antonio Brown on that team is unreal. Like, it's just not fair. And Gronk, obviously, but whatever. So, all right, let's do a few more things on the Rams, and then let's get to this Chargers matchup because I know you're itching to get to that one. This Rams running game, because I think that's one of the strong points of the Giants defense is their rush defense. Leonard Williams, you mentioned him. He's having a really good year. Former Trojan, fight on. Got a big contract, and he's been playing really well. And this Rams rushing offense, when utilized and when stuck to by Sean McVay, has been successful. Darrell Henderson, I think, has had a good season. Biggest question is always health. Sony Michel's been a nice acquisition as he gets into the offense more and more. And so this is I think, a very important facet of this offense to continue opening things up for Matthew Stafford, as it is with every offense. I mean, we could talk to we're blue in the face. And Brandon Staley, I think, said it best, now the Chargers coach, about what he loves about the running game. And everyone talks about, oh, yeah, it opens up play action and it gives you options, which is all true. But he talked about, and I've heard Sean McVay say this as well, it forces the defense to tackle. It brings physicality to the game, because if you're throwing the ball 50 times, 20 of those are either incompletions or guys going out of bounds, or, you're not forcing the defense to play physical. Running the football, you have to tackle on every running play, or you're going to break one for a touchdown. So that's what I think is so important about this running game and the Rams to do that, because they're getting known around the league, not necessarily for people that cover them, but as this finesse offense that, has the sexy deep ball and that, but sometimes you need some smash mouth stuff to keep the defense honest. So hopefully we see that today.
Yeah, and specifically against teams who are doing the too high shell, which the Giants do subscribe to, you've got to be able to run the ball to kind of soften that up and, kind of force these safeties to play downhill, and then you can take, some deep shots via play action. So I agree that the run game is important. Like, it sucks because, like, I think if Cam Akers had been healthy, then we'd be having a conversation in that regard, because we all know how talented he is. Not to say that Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel aren't talented, right? But like, I looked at Cam Akers as someone that was going to be taking that, next step into, that second tier behind Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb and all those guys. But I mean, they got to get the run game going for sure. And, one thing I really like about them is how they use Woods and Cooper Kupp as blockers, as runners of the football themselves. So I've always been a fan of the way that McVay calls the run game. And, getting a guy like Darrell Henderson, who's probably wouldn't start on that many teams. Of course, he's only started on the Rams because of injury, but I mean, he's looked good. It's just that he has kind of left a couple games early to injury. He's been a little inconsistent in that regard. So they've got to keep Henderson healthy, because I think relying on Sony Michel as a full-time starter would be kind of messy at this point in his career. So yeah, as long as they can keep Henderson healthy, I think the run game should continue to give them some good balance, and that's what they need right now.
Yeah, I've said all along that the style that Henderson runs with, and then obviously just his body type, and I don't want to say brittleness, but with his injury proneness, to me, he's always he's been a 10 to 12 touch guy. And so it worried me when Cam Akers went down and McVay went all in on Hendo's our guy, and we want to get in the ball 20 plus times. I was like, I don't know. That's a recipe for you're not going to see him down the stretch, which is when you really need him. So hopefully, I think they're utilizing the two-back system a lot more with Sony Michel. When he first came over, obviously he had to learn the offense, so he had like 2 touches in his first 2 games. Now he's getting at least involved more. He's a lot more involved in pass pro. He's been a great pass blocker, which I think is a huge facet of his game that not a lot of Rams fans knew about. I mean, he's been great in pass pro. And then getting Jake Funk more involved. He's a rookie. But having him, if he can get 5 to 6 touches a game, get Sony Michel 8 to 12 touches a game, so then you keep Hendo in that 12 to 15 range, then you're still sitting at 30 or so carries, which I think to me is the sweet spot for this Rams team. If you can get 30 plus rushing plays, 30 plus passing plays, you're running 60 to 70 plays a game, this team's not really, really hard to stop. So last thing, Steven, I want to talk about, because this was a big thing on Twitter, because of everything that Brandon Staley's done, and he should get all the credit in the world. I've been high on the guy since last January. Since 2 Januaries ago when the Rams brought him over as their DC. And then throughout the season was very high on him, saying this guy's going to be a great head coach one day. And so all the credit he's getting, he's deserving. But I've seen Bears fans, I've seen Broncos fans, and now I've seen Rams fans all separately saying the same thing. Man, we should have fired our head coach and elevated Brandon Staley. Okay. So with the Bears and Broncos, he was a position coach that no one had heard of.
Yeah.
Obviously a rising star, but no fan had ever. When he was hired by the Rams, there were mad Rams fans. Like, who do we just hire? We fired Wade Phillips.
Who's this guy?
A linebacker coach that we've never heard of. And then Sean McVay. Brandon Staley's been great. Sean McVay is a top 5 coach. Never had a losing season.
Yeah.
He made the playoffs 3 out of his 4 years. He turned the Rams organization from I don't want to say dumpster fire, but a bad culture to one of the best in football. I mean, everyone wants to play for the Rams. Part of that was with the move and the new stadium, but he went from Jeff Fisher's 7-9s every year to never losing his entire tenure. So the guy's a top 5 coach. And fans out there that are like, man, should we have moved on from? And it wasn't like a lot of fans saying this. It was just a couple I saw, but man, we should have moved on from Sean McVay and just elevated Brandon Staley. It's like, all right, sometimes you just don't know how good you have it. So I think my point of that is let's just all be thankful that in LA in general, we have 2 phenomenal coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there were some Chargers fans that had some fun with that too. And like, I love Brandon Staley. I'm a firm believer that he's going to be a top 5 head coach. I'm a firm believer that he's going to, lead the Chargers to a Super Bowl. But he hasn't done it yet. Like we got to give him some time before we have this conversation of like, oh, the Rams should have fired Sean McVay. Like, okay, like let's calm down a little bit. The Rams did make the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
they did win a playoff game last year.
I think one person that said that too was a Chargers fan, and he just got like Rams fans all riled up. He probably did it on purpose. I think probably who I'm talking about. I saw that, and I was like, I think you did that on purpose just to see who would all quote tweet you, and he got a lot.
No. My guy is one of the coolest guys on Twitter. He, he gave me some good food recommendations when I was down there in LA last weekend, but he definitely knew what he was doing, and I respected it. And I was like, this is going to be bad once Rams fans see this.
Oh yeah, and they did.
But the conversation like around the Bears and the Broncos, it's like none of you knew who he was. Like he was just a lowly position coach. Like when he was hired in Chicago, everybody was like, oh, okay, like they hired some linebackers coach. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you don't know who these position coaches really are unless the head coaches are talking about him. Like, Brandon Staley always talks about, Derek Ansley. And I think people are familiar with him because he's been, around in the college scene. But like we would have no idea who Roger is, their outside linebackers coach, unless, coaches are talking about him.
Yeah.
You have no idea who these position coaches are unless the coaches are talking about them.
Exactly.
Like we have no idea who, like, I don't know the receivers coach's name off the top of my head for the Chargers, and you could argue he's like doing a fantastic job with Mike Williams. So, that's a funny conversation to me.
Exactly.
I think Sean McVay is an awesome head coach. Like is currently. I think Brandon Staley is going to be one, but we have to see it proven more over time. Just really quickly before we get to the Chargers game, College Game Day headed to LA this weekend for the Bruins and Trojans game. Officially as of 4 minutes ago.
You mean Bruins and Ducks game, Oregon?
Yeah. Is that not what I said?
You said Trojans, but that'll happen later. That's in like 4
No,
weeks.
UCLA and Oregon. Yeah. UCLA and Oregon.
Is it? Okay. At the Rose Bowl.
Yes. At the Rose
Bowl. Are they
going
to, I don't know if your alert says it. Are they going to be at the Rose Bowl or are they going to be stationed somewhere in LA? Because sometimes they do it at the stadium. Sometimes they go like somewhere else, Because I'm going to plan to be there for sure.
Just says live from LA.
Okay. We'll look into that more. Stay tuned. That's sweet though. That's a good announcement.
I'm sure they'll probably announce like more specifics once it gets closer. But
yeah, I literally was
good. They never come west, so that's a good thing for everybody.
No, I know. I was literally talking to my buddy 2 weeks ago. I was like, when's the last time College Game Day was in LA? Like they really out west, period. But I've seen them at UW. I've seen them at an Oregon game. Before I'm like, when was the last time they were in LA? And part of that's just UCLA has been bad for a long time.
Yeah.
USC hasn't been great for a long time. But
I know that the Big Noon Kickoff has been in LA recently, like one of the last few years.
That's true. I always forget they do their own show too on Fox, which is and they got 3 USC guys on their panel basically, so that helps. That'll be fun.
Game day, the last time they were, I want to say they went to like a Washington game in 2019. Maybe it was an Oregon game with Herbert, but I know that they were up in the Pacific Northwest in 2019 for one.
Yeah, and it doesn't help either that the West Coast games are always freaking Pac-12 after dark, so it's hard to.
It's so
usually
annoying.
Game day they have like the big noon kickoff, so Well, that's exciting. We're gonna have to do some LA football stuff for that. Maybe we'll get some fans to get out there and we'll do some tailgating. So that'll be okay. That's great news. All right, last thing about the coaching thing, and then let's get to this Chargers matchup, and we'll wrap up with that. One thing too that I've thought about a lot, and what I've loved about this Brandon Staley mantra, I guess,
hype train,
whatever, hype, all of it, is that, and credit the Chargers to this. They are making him so available to the fans and the media that we're seeing stuff that you don't see from other coaches. Like, we haven't had this inside access to Sean McVay. Like, Sean McVay is a phenomenal coach, but we're not in the locker room all the time. We don't get the all-in YouTube special where you're seeing him, like, what he does at practices, the interviews. I mean, Brandon Staley's been on, like, the Pat McAfee show. He's been all over interviews. Hasn't yet been on the LA Football Podcast. Hopefully one day soon. Hopefully LAFB Live. He'll be joining us. But I think that access too gives fans like, man, this dude is awesome. And you get to see him talking to his players. You get to see him hyped up. And we just don't see that from other coaches. So you used to say you watch a 5-week YouTube special with the Rams and you see Sean McVay and everyone's like, oh, I'm all hyped up now. Like, look how good this guy is with his players. We don't have that. You just see him on Sundays. You see his play calling, and that's it. And he does his weekly Sean McVay show with JB Long. Chargers and Brandon Staley, they're doing the right thing, and they're just getting him in front of the fans. And it's worked. They obviously hired the right coach. The guy knows how to coach football, but he also is a great relationship guy, which is something I said back in the beginning, like why I loved him is he's just a relationship guy. And so that's, I think, another thing that has helped steam the hype train is just the access everyone's had to him.
Yeah, like one of my favorite things that he said in the summer, I think he was on Robert Mays' podcast, and Mays was like saying something similar, like, oh, like, why are you like so, why do you communicate so much with the fans? And like, why are you so like open to doing these things? And basically what he said was that like fans are a huge part of our game. And I want them to know more. Like, I want to give them more insight. I want to help them become more knowledgeable. And I love that as a fan. Like Anthony Lynn, whenever he would do, press conferences, he would talk about things and it's just like, I'm not telling you that. I'm not telling you that. Like, you could just tell that, like, he didn't want to give out secrets or whatever. And that's a big thing around, football in general, like college football, high school football, wherever you go, like coaches don't want to talk about things that they're doing. But Brandon Staley, like anything you ask him, he will answer, and he will answer with like great communication skills, which is what I love. And so it's been great to see,
which is
kind of the,
sorry to cut you off, but which is so funny in today's day and age. Like, if you're really concerned that a team is going to get an upper edge on you from an 8-minute press conference of you answering some usually not even that poignant of questions, then you have other issues.
Like, did you hear what Lincoln Riley did this week?
I didn't know.
So obviously with the quarterback controversy, down there, like their first practice of the week, some media member, like in not public media access time, like had a good view of the practice field from a different building or whatever, and was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm looking at Caleb Williams taking first team snaps. For the rest of the week, Lincoln Riley canceled all media availabilities. He did not do a press conference. He did not ask questions, nothing, because he wanted it to be a secret.
Yeah.
It's so dumb how this is such a big thing in football. Like, oh, like I'm going to, keep them guessing. Like I'm going to, have a secret edge on them. It's like, no, you're not. That's not a thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a game of inches. There's always these little things that give you the slightest of edges, but stuff like that is like, all right, these guys have intel. Like, I guarantee, like, they're calling someone on the staff, like, all right, you're giving the game tape, like,
everybody's friends with everybody these days. But it's been awesome to watch. Brandon Staley does all these great things, and the Chargers have been like, this is what they've done in the past, right? Like, they do a great job covering their team. They have all, there's so much good access with, I forget what they called it, but they used to do a different thing every single week for, each Chargers game on their own site. And, their social media page and team is amazing. So
the best.
They're doing a fantastic job of getting this content out there. And it's been working. Like, I was at the Browns game and we probably had 70% of the stadium was Chargers blue. And it was great. Like, they need to keep doing this. Everybody's taking notice of Brandon Staley right now. and rightfully so. As long as he's able to keep winning, like he's going to keep winning people over.
Oh yeah,
off the field. As long as they're winning on the field, then this is going to be a good situation for the team going forward.
It's funny seeing, and not everyone's like this, but I've been seeing a lot of people on Twitter like, oh, all these bandwagons fans coming on, blah 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 blah. But it's like that's
a good thing.
That's what you want when you move to a new city. You need new fans. Like you don't want to just keep the small fan base you have. I say all the time, this Chargers has a good fan base. It's nationally, it's a stupid storyline. They have a good fan base, but it is smaller. It's one of the smaller fan bases, but it's loyal. You move to LA, you want to gain more fans. And if you want to call them bandwagon fans, sure, that's what you want to call them. But if they live in LA and they don't have a team, and all of a sudden you're winning with Herbert and Staley, and they say, oh, I want to be a Chargers fan now, then you should welcome them with open arms, because that was the goal the whole time. I just think that's hilarious. I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
It was a really funny narrative this week of like, they didn't suffer like we did. Who fucking cares? We want more people in the stands. And it was just funny to me that like a fan base who, has been ridiculed for not having fans is now upset that we're getting new fans because they haven't been fans of the team all along. Like, this is the goal. You move to LA, you make strides as a team, and then you make strides in the stands. And, like the game on Sunday was electric. Like, it was the first time, obviously, that the Chargers have had a true home field advantage probably since like 2014, because 15 and 16, when all the rumors were going around, people stopped going to games.
Yeah.
So it's been like 6-7 years since we've had like a true home field advantage. Yeah. And that should be the goal. Like you want to sell out a stadium as much as you can with powder blue. Mm-hmm. And as long as the team's able to keep winning, there's all this Brandon Staley buzz because of his interviews. And also somebody asked Justin Herbert the other day if he had seen the clips, and he was like, oh no, I haven't seen them, which I also love because he's just like inactive on social media, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah. The clips of what, like the fans?
No, like the clips of Brandon Staley's press conferences.
Oh, gotcha.
Like they asked him if they've heard like if he had heard like the Ted Lasso comparisons, and like if he had seen any of the clips, and he was like, no, I haven't. Like I don't look at them.
Yeah, I love Justin Herbert. It's just I wonder what he would be like just to hang out with for like he seems kind of like quirky, like just there's just few scenes you've seen of him like on All In doing like barbecuing with the boys. Yeah, just seems kind of like a goofball. Just like, man,
he is. And it's so like I always comment to my wife, like his friends on the team are like the practice squad players and the fullback. I love it. On Monday, or it might have been Tuesday, he had a bunch of the guys over to his house to have Chipotle brisket. And it was like Austin Prohl was there, and Nate Gilliam, and it was Gabe Neighbors and Scott Quessenberry. And it's like you're friends with the backup offensive lineman and the practice squad receivers. Like he's so funny. I love the social media insight into Justin Herbert. Man.
As long as they attended his 21st birthday, then we're good. We know his leadership skills are there. We know he's good. Got to get a draft day reference in there. So let's get into this game, Steven. 2-4-1 teams. Dude, I'm hyped about this game. I'm still mad at myself because my niece just moved to Baltimore in June, July. Just moved out there. Has a house like less than a mile from M&T Bank Stadium.
Oh,
and
man,
for some reason, when I was looking through the schedules, and we've just been crazy busy. Like I said, I've had weddings the last 2 weeks. It somehow didn't enter my orb to get to this game out in Baltimore and be able to stay for free at my niece's house, less than a mile away from M&T Bank Stadium. So I'm still mad about that. But either way, we're watching it here in LA. I'm hyped for this game. I asked, and I know your answer, but I asked I had Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens on my show to preview this game. And I asked him, so I'll ask you, two great quarterbacks in the game right now, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. It's crazy what Herbert's doing, but Lamar Jackson does have an MVP under his belt. He's very dual threat. I think I know how high you are on him as well. Yeah. Unfair question, but if you're starting a team right now, are you taking Herbert or are you taking Jackson? You can't go wrong with either. But who you taking?
No, you can't go wrong with either. When we did in the summer, we did a quarterback draft on our podcast where we each drafted 5 quarterbacks, to like our team, like we had a lot of fun with it. And I had the third pick and I took Lamar. Lamar was my pick. I think he gives you such an edge in the run game. And I know that he has continued to develop as a passer. This year, he actually leads the league in average depth of target. And he hasn't had his full cast of supporting players, right? Like We're seeing Rashad Bateman's debut today. And we're seeing, Sammy Watkins in and out of the lineup. So his progress as a passer has been insane. But the answer is Herbert, man. The answer is Herbert. Like, yeah. I think that he has like elite, like Hall of Fame potential right now. And like, as crazy as that is to say, because I was not a Herbert guy coming into the draft. Like, I wasn't. But he can make every single throw in the game. And we don't really see him use his legs all that often. We saw him use him a little bit last week, but he just gives your team such an advantage because he can throw every single throw on the field. And we heard Brandon Staley say that, like, when you have a quarterback who can make opposing defenses cover every single inch of the field, you have a huge advantage. And that's what Justin Herbert is. So, I know that Jimmy Johnson caught a lot of slack last week for saying he would take Herbert over anybody, including Mahomes. I'm not to that point quite yet, but I think if you're doing a full quarterback draft, I think it's Mahomes 1, and I think it's Herbert 2.
Well, and I think it's fair to even take either or. And I think part of that is we've seen now Herbert in 2 different systems, 2 different, completely different offensive systems, and he's been successful in both. 2 different coaching staffs, successful in both.
2 different shitty offensive line.
2 different offensive lines, successful with both. Yeah. And again, we're 5 weeks into this season so far, but you can tell pretty quickly if a guy's got it or doesn't, and if a guy's good or not. And Herbert's great. Now Lamar Jackson is fantastic as well, and electrifying and fun to watch. And you have to scheme specifically for his skill set. There's been many teams that have tried to take one thing away from him, force him to pass. He's now improved as a passer. The reason why I would also take Herbert, and maybe it's biased or not, but I think the league is really high on Herbert as well. So it's not just us who cover him. Is that Lamar Jackson has been now in the same system his whole career with Greg Roman as his OC. They tailor-made this system around Lamar Jackson's skill set. You go from Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson. Their playbooks are 180 from what they were back in whatever it was, 2017 to now 2018 when he's drafted. And that's no discredit to him. That's not saying that's a bad thing, but I don't know how he would be elsewhere in other systems, which he shouldn't have to be. Like, you tailor your things to his skill set. That's what good coaching is. But like I said, we've seen Herbert now do 2 different things, 2 different offensive lines, 2 different intangibles, if you will. And he's been great in both. And I think he's just going to get better and better and better. He's best when the game is on the line, which is crazy. Yeah. Lamar Jackson, we haven't seen him do that premier stuff yet. I mean, they lost to Vegas in overtime. He had a big fumble there in overtime that basically cost the loss, had a couple interceptions. Herbert gets better as the game goes on. When it's crunch time, when it's going against the Browns last week and it's a shootout, and put the ball in Herbert's hands, 4th and Staley, doesn't matter. We're converting over and over and over again.
Shout out.
Yeah. We got a new shirt up on LAFB Network. I'll put that up on the screen later, but yeah, so that's why I'm taking Herbert.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned, the key thing there, which is, Herbert's clutch gene, which I can't, like, looking back 2 years ago, I'm like, Herbert clutch? Like, no way. But I mean, he leads the league in QBR and passer rating and PFF grades, whatever you want to, qualify in 3rd downs, 4th downs, and 4th quarter. So, the name of the game right now, the quarterback position is like, who do you trust most to, get the ball in the 4th quarter and give you a win? Mm-hmm. And what I said on our podcast a couple of weeks ago is, like, we saw examples of this when the Niners, touchdown against the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers had like 40 seconds left, and all of us knew, like, oh, that's too much time for Aaron Rodgers. You left Aaron Rodgers too much time. We've seen this with Patrick Mahomes, same thing. You give him the ball with 1:30, that's too much time.
Not against
and I think Chargers. That Justin Herbert, not against the Chargers, right? But we're seeing Justin Herbert enter that conversation too, where it comes into the 4th quarter. I know I have full confidence in Herbert to lead the Chargers to go score points, to go execute a 4-minute drive like he did against Washington. Whatever the case may be, whatever the situation is in the 4th quarter, Herbert is going to be successful. And I think that's the difference right now in terms of, like, the elite quarterbacks in the league. Like, we saw the opposite side of things. Baker Mayfield gets the ball back with 1:30 and full confidence in the Chargers defense, because I don't trust Baker Mayfield in those situations. Yeah. And if that's what it comes down to today, which I think it probably will, I don't know if I have full confidence in Lamar Jackson to go lead, a 2-minute drive and score a touchdown. And that's the difference really between, Aaron, Brady, Justin Herbert, Mahomes, all these guys. You trust them in the fourth quarter. You trust them with the ball, with the game on the line. And Brandon Staley does too. Like, he's instilled a lot of confidence in this team and in Justin Herbert specifically with the way that he is calling these, situational football. And it's just been amazing to watch Herbert take that leap, because we all knew heading into the year that he could. We just needed to see it happen. And right now we are seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, it's so fun and so awesome. John Harbaugh, coach of the Ravens. This guy, I don't think this guy gets enough credit around
He doesn't.
fans and league. Like, where do you rank John Harbaugh in coaching rankings? And let me throw this stat at you, because I said it on my show, because I love just to dig at the Niners any chance I can get, being the Rams rival. John Harbaugh has as many losing seasons coaching for the Ravens. What's it been, 13, 14 years now?
Yeah.
As Kyle Shanahan has winning seasons.
Oh, shit.
How crazy is that? And the guy was like talking about getting fired 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Where do you rank him?
I think for me, he's absolutely top 5. Like, every single year, they're in it at the end. They go through these injuries. Like, how many coaches realistically can lose their starting quarterback mid-season, change the entire offense for the backup quarterback, and then actually be better? Like, that's probably 2 or 3 coaches, maybe 4 or 5. Like, I think Andy Reid would probably be in that conversation. Sean McVay could be in that conversation. But that's Harbaugh too. And he's so good situationally as well. And I think really, like, the only thing that I've really criticized the Ravens for in terms of coaching recently has been the passing attack, because I've felt like it's been too clunky and they haven't really invested in it enough to allow Lamar to progress, which we're seeing happen this year. So to me, Harbaugh does not get enough credit at all for being an elite coach. Like, everybody kind of talks about, the same ones in terms of the top 3, but I think Harbaugh is right there in that top 5. And, if we're doing like a coach's draft, like, have the same quarter conversation, like, I think if you're doing a coach's draft, Harbaugh is right there, with the top of, the top tier of the coaches for sure.
It has to be. I mean, the Ravens are good every single year, and a lot of that, Ozzie Newsome built a great, as a GM. Now he's retired and passed the duties on. But he was, that front office was great, but that all stemmed from Harbaugh and what he was able to build, and they're just good year in and year out. And I'd put him right up there. I'm trying to wrap my head around all the coaches out there. I mean, he's up there. I'd put him up there with Belichick. Now that we've seen Belichick without Brady and the struggles they've had a little bit. I know it's only been a season and a half, but Harbaugh's done it with Flacco. Now he's doing it with Lamar Jackson, and this will be a great coaching duel between him and Staley. And Harbaugh's a guy it takes a lot of risks. I mean, he kind of was known for going for on 4th downs a lot, doing special teams trick plays and stuff of that nature. So it's gonna be a fun chess match seeing him and Staley. Who goes for more 4th downs today, you think?
I know.
Harbaugh or Staley?
I think it's probably Staley at this point, but it'll be close. Back-to-back weeks of the most aggressive coaches in the league, because Stefanski's up there too.
Yeah,
we only saw him go for I think we only saw Stefanski go for 1 last week on 4th down. But it's fun. I kind of finishing the coaching conversation. I think really what separates coaches is what are you able to do with your team when you have adversity strike, and that's what they've had this year, man. Like, they lost both of their starting tackles. They've lost 17 running backs. Like, their secondary has been torn to shreds. And they just keep chugging along, man. And, you're losing to the Colts on Monday Night Football. Run game can't get going for the first time in 4 years with Lamar. And you have Lamar have a career day, passing his 400 yards, and they end up winning. Yeah. So really, the way that Harbaugh has handled adversity throughout his career has really been what separates him, in my opinion. It's what separates everybody else. Mike Tomlin is another one who really gets slept on. Like, the man went 8-8 with Duck Hodges taking 6 games at quarterback and Mason Rudolph taking 4 or 5. Like, that's to me what separates the great coaches. Like, when adversity strikes, what are you able to do? And we're going to see that with Pete Carroll. Everybody loves Pete Carroll. I'm not a big Pete Carroll guy. And now he doesn't have Russ. He doesn't have Chris Carson. His defense is not very good. Well, what are you going to do, Pete? Are you going to rise to the occasion and prove that you're an elite coach? I don't think that happens. But, when you look at Harbaugh, Tomlin, those are the guys that I trust. Like if I have to go through the ringer, if I'm in an alleyway and I need someone to fight my way out, like Harbaugh and Tomlin are guys I trust more in that regard.
I do not get the Tomlin hate at all. Like I don't get it because they've had like not as much success. I mean, they still make the playoffs. They're still the cream of the crop. They're still
never had a losing season.
It's insane.
He probably will this year, but
yeah, it's crazy. So I don't get that at all. But looking at this matchup specifically, I know we've both dug into it a ton all week long, so we'll keep it kind of short and sweet. But when you look at the Ravens defense, how do you want the Chargers offense to attack it? Because I think they've, like you said, they've had some bad injuries in the secondary. They haven't had as great of play as typical. They still have Marlon Humphrey. But I think the front seven maybe is a little bit more formidable, but we do want to see the running game still going. But how are you attacking it if you're Joe Lombardi and the Chargers offense?
Yeah, I think I would look at this matchup in a very similar way as I would look at the Raiders matchup, offense versus defense, and that, the secondary is not very good. Still have some formidable pieces, right? Casey Hayward. This one, you have Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah.
The advantage that I think the Chargers offense has in this one that's, greater than any other one is Austin Eckler and the tight ends versus the linebackers, specifically Patrick Queen, the former first-round pick, who is, giving up a passer rating of over 100 when he's been targeted. Nice. So to me, like, I'm looking for a big day from Austin Eckler and the tight ends. I know Mike Williams is going to play in this one, but I think he's a little banged up, so we could see them kind of move away from him in this one. Maybe he gets, 4 or 5 catches this one. And, the strength of the Ravens defense to me is what they do in the slot with Marlon Humphrey and Tavon Young. So Keenan Allen could have a really tough matchup in this one. We know how great he is. Like, he could definitely have a big game at any moment. But to me, it's the linebackers and the safeties how I would attack this team with Austin Eckler and the tight end. So I think we look for a big day from Eckler, maybe a bit of a coming out party from Donald Parham, which has been kind of building and building. And so that's where I would go. I would attack the middle of the defense with the running backs and tight ends.
Yeah. 42-7 Chargers. I don't know if I don't know if I'm that confident. I do like the Chargers, but I don't know if I'm that confident.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely, I think, the plan of attack. I really, he's a rookie, so I'm not saying he's not with the expectations just because the offense has been great. So it's not like he's not doing what he's supposed to do. But I want to see Josh Palmer get more involved. I think this is a game where we could see him finally get more involved because, like you mentioned, Mike Williams a bit hobbled up. But the way the NFL works, Williams on the injury report, he's a late, okay, he's going to play. He'll end up having 10 catches for 150 yards or something like that. Like, that's just the way NFL games go, where you're like, guy's going to be used sparingly, and then he ends up being the focal point. But
I know. It's like last year, remember the Bengals game? Everybody was like, oh, Mike Williams is not going to play. Ends up playing, has like 12 targets and 7 catches for 90 yards or what it was. Like, that's just Mike Williams in general. That's the NFL. And they certainly could. Like, we saw the Colts really go after Anthony Averett, the third corner, who was matched up a lot with Michael Pittman and some of those guys. So we could certainly see in Big Mike Williams Day. I just think that the advantage that the Chargers have with Eckler and the tight ends is huge in this one. So I think we could see that one kind of go their way.
Totally. And like you mentioned with the Raider game, that's what was utilized so well in the passing attack and getting Eckler in the end zone multiple times and getting Cook in the end zone and getting Parham in the end zone. So all the aforementioned pieces are what I think we can expect to see in this one. So any other key matchups you want to touch on, or should we just get to prediction and wrap this up?
Well, I think the biggest thing I'm paying attention to do today on defense, I know everybody kind of harped on the run defense, and rightfully so. I think we need to see the Chargers pass rush get back on track this week.
Yeah.
It's so difficult as a pass rusher to play the pass very well when you're just getting gashed on the ground like they were last week. They only pressured Baker Mayfield 5 times, and Joe Bosa only had the 1 pressure. So I think we need to see them get after Lamar a little bit more. That's what happened in the playoffs. They really got after him. Bosa had a big day, and Bosa had a big day. Ingram had a good day. So that to me is kind of like the key on defense, because it's not the same old rushing attack for the Ravens either. Like, you have Latavius Murray, who's okay. So I'm not like extremely worried about the run defense in this one. Like, I'm definitely concerned about it. I'm more concerned about the pass rush at this point, and I think they really need to do a better job of getting after Lamar, making him comfortable, And like Brandon Lee said ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs game, like we're coming to invade your space. Yeah. And we need to see the pass rush invade Lamar's space, make him uncomfortable. You know, you don't want to see him kind of escape the pocket, right? Like you want to keep him in there. But they got to get after Lamar and this offensive line for the Ravens, which is not very good. You know, Alejandro Villanueva leads the league in pressures at the left tackle spot. Right tackle is not very good either. And so really outside of their center and their right guard, Kevin Zeitler, the offensive line can be had. Mm-hmm. And so I think we need to see a big day from the Chargers pass rush.
Who do you see? Obviously, the usual suspects and Bosa and the other edge guys, but we saw against the Raiders and a little bit against the Browns, Brandon Staley wrinkling in some linebacker blitzes with, you know, Drew Tranquill, who was exploding out of the second unit and coming in and you know, getting after the quarterback or at least applying pressure. He's in a no-go today. No Kenneth Murray today. Is there someone else you think that they could use in that role, or are they going to have to go more just a four-man rush and drop everyone else back?
Well, that's the trend right now with all these quarterbacks is you want to rush with four, play coverage with them. But I think you've got to get after Lamar. And if that takes blitzing, Kaiser White, Nick Niemann, Managbong, you know, I think they've got to do that.
Yeah.
We've seen Chris Harris, Tavon Campbell blitz a few times in the slot. So we'll see. Like, I think they've got to make Lamar uncomfortable in this one to win, or at least to, you know, help out the off a little bit more. Derwin James as a pass rush has been fun to watch. I don't think you can really afford to do that this one. I think you've probably got to keep Derwin, you know, back and reacting to Lamar.
Totally.
But one of Kyler Fackrell and Uchenna Nwosu like have to step up today. Like they have to have a good game. And Nwosu certainly has not lived up to expectations. He's been okay, but they need to see more out of him specifically because he's up for a contract this year. And ideally, you're hoping that he becomes that true number 2 rusher. And that hasn't really been the case so far. So Nwosu need to have a big day, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, you know, I think Fackrell's look pretty good, but yeah, Uchenna has kind of disappeared in a lot of games. So see if you can get after it. So, yeah, I'm excited. We're about what, 30 minutes? Yeah, about 27 minutes from kickoff. 27. Crazy. So let's wrap this up so we can all get settled in and crack that first beer and get rolling. So who are you taking in this one?
Crack first beer. I'm still drinking coffee, bro.
Yeah, I'm on beer number 3. So, you know, no, I'm just kidding. Let the first one going here in a second. So, yeah, who are you taking?
I'm picking the Chargers in this one. I think it's too much Justin Herbert. It's too much, you know, Austin Eckler specifically, who's like quietly has been one of the best running backs in football so far this year.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not expecting the defense to like have, you know, like a get right game or anything like that. Like, I think they just do enough. You know, they get a couple sacks, a turnover or 2 to give the Chargers short fields. And I think the Chargers kind of win close. I predicted 28-23 on our show, and I'm going to stick with that. I just think it's too much Herbert, too much Eckler, too much Mike Williams. And I think the best players are going to play today. So, yeah, I think we might see a Derwin James pick, Joey Bosa sack, but I'm sticking with Chargers 28, Ravens 23.
I like it. I like the Chargers as well. The Ravens are 3-point favorites in this one, at least according to Bet Online. And I'm taking that money line for the Chargers. We're taking the points if you want. I like them 34-27. Think it'll be a high scoring affair just because of the way the defenses have been playing. But I think the Chargers defense will step up when needed, just like they did last week against the Browns when they made that final stop to give the ball back. Hopefully we'll see some special teams better play. Hopefully we'll see some not missed kicks by Tristan Vizcaino because you're going against the best kicker in the game and Justin Tucker. So, you know, they're not going to miss anything. So we can't have any miscues in that. Yeah, which is always great. So, but 34-27, I think the Chargers. I like it.
I dig it, man. I dig it.
We didn't predict actually the Rams game, but it would, you know, Rams are 7.5 points favorites, and I think they hit that
cover.
easy. Yeah, I think they cover easy. I think I'm going to say, let's go 33-14. I think they win that one.
I would probably say like 34-17. So yeah, they'll cover. The Giants are too injured right now, and they're not good enough in the positions that they need to be to handle much of anything against the Rams. So yeah, 34-17 to me like seems right.
Yeah, I love how the schedules work out. Like the Rams and Chargers play in the same stadium in LA, and now they're playing literally 2 hours apart on the East Coast at the same time. So they're just traveling together.
Yeah.
chartering that jet. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it. LAFB Live, some great games. UCLA, Oregon next week. Like we said, as Steven mentioned, breaking during the show, game day will be here in LA. We'll find out where exactly, and hopefully some of us can get out there and have a good time. Kickoff 20 minutes away. Chargers, Ravens, Rams, Giants. Are you going anywhere, Steven? Or are you just watching at home? Do you get the game? Are you televised?
We get the game today. So my wife's dealing with a little bit of a cold, so we're staying home watching the game here. That's kind of how I prefer it anyways. I'm not a big crowd guy generally, so I like to watch it at home, yell at my TV in peace. But yeah, it's been fun.
Well, and for what we do and covering the team, it's a lot harder to cover them when you're somewhere else. So it's easier when you're at home. So well, yeah, I'm pumped. These are two great games. So enjoy it, my man. Thanks as always.
You as well.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Few of us are going to jump back on here actually after the games to recap them since they both play at the same time. So we'll keep everyone posted on that. But enjoy it. Hopefully we get 2 wins, go 2-0 this weekend. And my man, we'll talk soon. All right.
All right, man.